On the first time, she screamed loudly and the millionaire promised to go slowly and gently. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. On a cold and windy evening in a quiet New York City restaurant, the air was filled with the soft hum of conversation and the faint clinking of silverware. The lighting was warm, casting a cozy glow over the room. For the patrons in the restaurant, it was just another evening of fine dining. But for Emma Brooks, the young woman sitting at a table near the window, it felt like anything but. Her dress was second-hand, her shoes were scuffed, and her hands trembled slightly as she fidgeted with the napkin on her lap. She couldn't help but feel out of place in this upscale restaurant. She had promised her best friend, Jenny, that she would go through with this blind date, but everything about this moment felt wrong. She glanced at the phone in her hand one last time. Table 7, she mumbled to herself. Her heart raced as she looked around the room. This wasn't her world. She wasn't supposed to be here. But she had promised. As she walked through the room, her eyes landed on a man sitting alone at a table in the back. He was dressed sharply in a tailored suit, his dark hair neatly styled, and he appeared engrossed in his phone. She took a deep breath and walked over to him. Hi, you must be Kevin. I'm Emma. Nice to meet you, she said, forcing a bright smile onto her face. The man looked up, clearly startled, blinking at her in confusion for a moment. Hi, Emma, he replied, his voice soft but polite. He paused, clearly trying to make sense of the situation. Emma, nervous and trying to cover up the awkwardness, slid into the seat across from him. I know this is awkward. Blind dates are weird, right? She laughed nervously. Jenny told me. You might be a little shy, so don't worry. I can talk enough for both of us. The man opened his mouth, as if to correct her, but then paused, a strange look in his eyes. His business associate had just texted him, cancelling their meeting for the evening. Something about Emma's genuine smile made him hesitate. She wasn't like the polished socialites he usually dealt with. She seemed real. He decided to play along, offering a small smile of his own. Right. Blind dates are something else, he said, his voice softening. Emma smiled, glad that the tension had lifted a little. Tell me about yourself, she said, eager to keep the conversation going. I'm a waitress. Not exactly glamorous, but it pays the bills, she said, trying to brush off the nerves that had crept up again. She quickly changed the subject. What about you? What do you do? I work in tech, he replied, his answer vague but intriguing. Emma, trying to make the conversation flow, said, Tech? That's cool. Like, coding and apps and stuff? I'm terrible with computers. He chuckled, his smile widening slightly. Something like that, he said. He leaned back in his chair, studying her with a quiet curiosity. There was something refreshing about her straightforwardness, even if it was rooted in the mistaken identity of their meeting. The conversation flowed easily after that, and Emma shared stories about her life, her struggles as a waitress, and her dreams of one day opening her own art studio. Liam found himself laughing more than he had in months. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and for the first time in a while, he felt like he was just talking to a regular person, not someone who saw him for his wealth. You're not what I expected, Emma said, her voice thoughtful. Liam raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Well, Jenny said you were a little reserved, Emma explained, her cheeks flushing. But you're easy to talk to. Liam chuckled, his eyes warm. You're easy to talk to, too, he said, a smile tugging at his lips. Emma beamed at the compliment, feeling her nerves start to ease. She was just about to ask him more about his work in tech when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her face falling. Hey, Emma, Where are you? I'm at table 7, the message from Jenny. Read. Emma's stomach dropped as she reread the text, and then she looked up at Liam, her face burning with embarrassment. You're not Kevin, are you? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam's smile faltered, guilt flickering in his eyes. No, I'm not. Emma stood up abruptly, her heart pounding. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, she muttered. I sat at the wrong table. This is so embarrassing. Before Liam could say anything, she grabbed her coat and bolted for the door, her face flushed with shame. As she rushed out, Liam watched her go, a strange mix of regret and curiosity swirling in his chest. He had meant to correct her from the start, but now, as he watched her leave, he found himself wondering if he would ever see her again, and why the thought of not seeing her bothered him so much. Would you have stayed? Or walked away? Emma may have been embarrassed, but this moment was far from over. Stay tuned for what happens next. The next morning, Emma sat in her small apartment, a cup of lukewarm coffee in her hands. The events of the night before kept replaying in her mind. She had met a man she thought was someone else, only to run out of the restaurant when she realized her mistake. She could still feel the warmth of his smile, his patience, as if he hadn't been bothered by her awkwardness. It was ridiculous to even think that he'd want to see her again. After all, she was just a waitress, barely scraping by. She had nothing to offer. But why did she feel so strange, like she was waiting for something to happen? She shook her head, trying to push the thought out of her mind. She had to focus on her life, her work, and the dream of opening an art studio one day. She needed to get back to her routine. Yet, something in her chest tightened when she saw a message pop up on her phone. It was from an unknown number. The message read, Hi, Emma. This is Liam. I was the guy you met last night at the restaurant. I know it was a mix-up, but I'd like to see you again. Coffee, maybe. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be him? She stared at the screen, unsure of what to do. This was the moment. She had no idea what kind of person he really was, but something about his message felt genuine, kind. Without thinking too much, she typed back, Okay, coffee sounds nice. She hit send before she could talk herself out of it. It had been a week since Emma's coffee with Liam, and her thoughts had been swirling ever since. At first, she told herself it was just a simple coffee date, a casual meeting between two strangers who had made a mistake. But the more she thought about it, the more it felt like something deeper. Liam had been different from anyone she had ever met. He listened. He didn't judge. He cared. And that smile of his, that warmth in his eyes, made her feel like she mattered. But she couldn't let herself get carried away. After all, she was just a waitress, a girl who barely made ends meet, while he seemed to have everything at his fingertips. Yet, there was something about him, something that drew her in, something that made her want to see him again. And so, when she received another text from him, asking her to dinner, her heart raced. This time, she didn't hesitate. She replied with a simple yes, and when the day arrived, she was both nervous and excited. She spent longer than usual getting ready, picking out a dress she hadn't worn in ages. It wasn't much, but she hoped it would be enough. As she walked into the restaurant that evening, the familiar warmth washed over her, but it wasn't the same. This time, it felt different. Liam was already there, sitting at a table near the window, his eyes scanning the room as if he was waiting for her. When he saw her, he stood up with that same easy smile that always made her feel at ease. Hi, Emma, he said, his voice warm and inviting. You look great tonight. She smiled, feeling her cheeks flush slightly. Thanks, she said, sitting down across from him. The conversation flowed effortlessly, just like before. But tonight, something felt different. She wasn't just sharing stories about her struggles anymore. This time, she let herself be vulnerable. She talked about her dreams, her fears, her hopes for the future. And as she spoke, Liam listened, really listened, as if he cared about every word. They talked about everything. From their favorite movies to the small things that made them laugh. As the night wore on, Emma felt a sense of comfort she hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time in ages, she felt like she was in the presence of someone who truly understood her. After dinner, Liam suggested they take a walk. They strolled through the quiet streets of the city, the air crisp with the bite of early autumn. Emma felt her heart lighten with every step, the weight of the world lifting just a little bit. They passed a small park, and Liam suggested they sit on a bench for a while. The conversation slowed, and for a moment, they just sat in comfortable silence, watching the leaves fall from the trees. Liam turned to her after a while, his expression thoughtful. "I know we've only just met, but I feel like I've known you for longer," he said quietly. "There's something about you, Emma. Something real." She looked at him, unsure of what to say. She had never allowed herself to believe in something like this before. It felt too good to be true, like it was all just a fantasy. But there was a part of her, a small voice deep inside, that told her maybe, just maybe, this could be something more. "I don't know what this is," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "But I want to find out." Liam smiled, his eyes softening. "Me too," he said, his voice steady. "I think we're on the same page." Emma felt a flutter in her chest. For the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as invisible as she had once thought. Maybe, she was worthy of something real, something more than just the struggles of everyday life. The moment stretched on, the world around them fading into the background as they shared a quiet, unspoken understanding. As they got up to leave, Liam reached out and gently took her hand. "I'm glad we met, Emma," he said, his voice low but full of sincerity. She squeezed his hand, feeling a warmth spread through her. "Me too," she whispered. As they parted ways that night, Emma's heart was filled with a new sense of hope. She didn't know where this would lead, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid to find out. Could this be the start of something she never thought was possible? Could Liam really be the one to help her heal, to see her for who she truly was? The question swirled in her mind as she walked back to her apartment, but deep down, she felt something shift inside her. Maybe she wasn't just a waitress after all. Maybe, just maybe, she deserved this. But as she reached her door and turned the key in the lock, she couldn't help but wonder, could he see the real her, the one who had hidden behind her struggles for so long? Was it too soon to believe in something good? It had been a few weeks since that evening with Liam, and Emma still couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed inside her. She had gone through most of her life with the belief that she didn't deserve anything more than the bare minimum, but the time she spent with Liam had begun to challenge that mindset. It was more than just a few coffee dates. It felt like they were building something real, something grounded in honesty and shared moments. Yet, as much as Emma wanted to embrace it, there was a nagging doubt at the back of her mind. She was still a waitress, still struggling to make ends meet. She didn't belong in his world, or so she thought. It wasn't just about the financial differences between them, it was the feeling that she might never be enough. But every time Liam looked at her, his gaze softened, as if he could see right through her insecurities. And every time he spoke, she felt seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. She had to admit to herself that she was starting to care about him more than she expected. One evening, after finishing her shift, Emma's phone buzzed with a message from Liam. "Dinner tonight? I was thinking we could try that little Italian place by the park. I'd love to see you." The invitation felt effortless, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. She quickly agreed, a smile spreading across her face. It had become their routine, casual dinners, long conversations, and gentle smiles. But this time, it felt different. As Emma walked into the restaurant later that evening, the familiar warmth of the place wrapped around her. Liam was already there, seated at a corner table, looking at his phone. When he saw her, his face lit up. "You look beautiful tonight," he said, standing to greet her. Emma felt her heart race, a blush creeping up her neck. "Thank you," she replied, sitting down across from him. Their conversation flowed easily, as it always did. They talked about everything, their favorite places in the city, the strange quirks of life that made them laugh, the little things that kept them going. But tonight, Emma found herself becoming more and more drawn to him, not just as a man she was getting to know, but as someone who made her feel like she mattered. As they shared dessert, Liam looked at her with an intensity that made her feel exposed, yet safe at the same time. "I know we've been seeing each other for a while now, but I feel like I should tell you something," he said, his voice steady but carrying an underlying seriousness. Emma's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" she asked, suddenly feeling vulnerable. Liam took a deep breath. "I know this might sound strange, but I think I'm falling for you, Emma." Emma froze for a moment, the words catching her off guard. She had been hoping for this, yet hearing it out loud made her stomach twist. She had always been afraid of getting too close to anyone, of letting someone in, because it always felt like she was too much of a mess to be loved. But here was Liam, a man she had grown to care for deeply, telling her that he felt the same way. She swallowed hard, searching for the right words. I think I'm falling for you too," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. The relief that washed over her was almost overwhelming. Liam smiled, his eyes softening as he reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I'm glad to hear that," he said. "Because I'm not going anywhere." For the first time in a long while, Emma allowed herself to believe in something good. She wasn't sure where this would go, or what the future held, but for that moment, she felt like she had found something worth fighting for. The next few weeks passed in a blur of shared moments and quiet conversations. Liam was everything she had hoped for and more. He didn't pressure her, didn't rush her into anything she wasn't ready for. He gave her space to grow, to heal, to believe in herself again. But as much as she wanted to believe in their future, doubt still lingered. Was she really enough for him? Could someone like her, someone from a completely different world, ever truly fit into his life? Emma found herself avoiding those questions, burying them under the weight of their growing connection. She didn't want to overthink it, didn't want to ruin something that felt so real. But deep down, she knew that those questions would have to be answered eventually. One afternoon, as they sat in a quiet park, watching the autumn leaves swirl around them, Emma found herself staring at Liam, trying to read his expression. He noticed her gaze and smiled, his eyes warm. "What's on your mind?" he asked. Emma hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I'm just wondering. I'm not sure if I fit into your life. I mean, I'm a waitress. I can barely pay my bills, and you're a millionaire. You have everything, and I have so little." Liam reached out, gently brushing his fingers against hers. "You have more than you realize, Emma," he said softly. "You have a heart that's real, a kindness that's rare, and a strength that I admire." Emma's heart swelled in her chest, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was worthy of something more than just survival. Maybe she could have it all: love, happiness, and a future she could finally believe in. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of emotions for Emma. She had found herself falling deeper for Liam, and he seemed to be falling for her just as much. They spent almost every evening together, whether it was grabbing coffee at their favorite spot or walking through the park, talking about everything and nothing. He was patient with her, always reassuring her that he wasn't going anywhere. For the first time in her life, Emma felt like she was truly seen, like she mattered beyond her job or her struggles. But even as she let herself feel the warmth of their growing connection, a part of her still hesitated. She was scared. What if she wasn't enough? What if this was all just a dream she was afraid to wake up from? Liam had everything: a successful career, wealth, and a world full of opportunities. And Emma? She was still a waitress, struggling to keep up with rent and bills, just barely holding on to the dreams she had once let slip away. Her insecurities crept in, clouding her thoughts. What could someone like Liam ever see in her? He deserved someone with a future as bright as his, someone who fit perfectly into his world. She had tried to push those thoughts aside, but they kept coming back, no matter how hard she tried to ignore them. One evening, as they sat together on a bench in the park, watching the sun set behind the trees, Emma felt her heart race. She wanted to ask him the question that had been eating at her for days, but she wasn't sure if she could bear the answer. "Liam," she began, her voice a little shaky. Do you really see a future with me? I mean, really, when you think about it, can you imagine me in your life long term? I know I'm just a waitress, and I feel like I'm always holding you back. Like you deserve someone who's more. Liam turned to her, his expression unreadable for a moment, before softening into a gentle smile. He took her hand in his touch warm and comforting. Emma, he said, his voice steady and sincere, I'm not looking for someone who fits into some perfect mold. I'm looking for someone who's real, someone who makes me feel like I can be myself. And that's you. You're more than enough. I don't care about your job or how much money you have. What I care about is you, who you are, how you make me feel, the way you look at the world. Emma's heart swelled at his words, but her insecurities were still there, lurking in the back of her mind. But I don't belong in your world, Liam, she whispered. You have everything. And I have nothing. Liam shook his head gently, his eyes never leaving hers. That's where you're wrong, Emma. You have everything that matters. You have kindness, you have strength, you have the ability to love and be loved. And that's worth more than any amount of money or success. I know what I have, but what I've learned is that none of it matters if I don't have someone to share it with. And I want to share it with you. Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as his words sank in. She had never allowed herself to believe that someone could see her that way, could love her for who she truly was, flaws and all. It felt like a dream, but the sincerity in his voice made her believe it was real. You're not holding me back, Emma, he continued, his thumb brushing across the back of her hand. You're exactly who I want in my life. Don't ever think you're not enough, because you are. You always have been. For a moment, Emma just sat there, her heart racing as she processed everything he had said. Slowly, a smile spread across her face. Maybe she was enough after all. Maybe, just maybe, she was worthy of this love, of someone who truly cared for her. They sat in silence for a while, their hands intertwined, the world around them quiet. It was in that moment that Emma realized something profound. It wasn't about money, status, or the perfect life. It was about connection, about being seen for who you truly were, about finding someone who loved you despite your imperfections. As they stood up to leave, Liam pulled her into a hug, holding her close. I don't know what the future holds, Emma, he said softly, his voice full of promise. But I do know this, I want you in it. And I'm not going anywhere. Emma closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his words sink in. She had spent so much of her life feeling like she wasn't enough, like she didn't deserve love or happiness. But in that moment, with Liam holding her in his arms, she realized that maybe she was wrong all along. Maybe she did deserve this. Maybe she deserved to be loved. As they walked home that night, Emma felt lighter than she had in years. The doubts, the fears, the insecurities, they were still there, but they no longer felt like the weight they once were. She had Liam by her side, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like anything was possible. The following weeks were filled with a sense of calm that Emma hadn't felt in years. Liam had kept his promise to go slow, to allow her to take things at her own pace, and it felt like everything was falling into place. They continued to spend time together, enjoying the simple things, walks in the park, quiet dinners at small cafes, and moments where time seemed to slow down. For the first time, Emma began to feel like she could breathe again, like her heart wasn't always racing in fear of what might happen next. But even though things seemed to be perfect, there was still one thing Emma couldn't shake off, the thought of Liam's world, his success, and everything that came with it. She couldn't help but feel like she was still so far out of her depth. Liam never made her feel that way, but the doubt still lingered, tucked away in the back of her mind. She knew she wasn't the same as the women he might have been used to, women who had money, careers, and everything that society told them they should have. But what about her? She was just a waitress, struggling to make ends meet, always worrying about her next paycheck, always falling short. Could Liam ever truly be happy with someone like her? Could he see a future with her when their worlds were so different? Emma tried to push these thoughts aside. She told herself that Liam loved her for who she was, that none of it mattered. But one evening, as they sat in his apartment, the question slipped out before she could stop it. "Liam, do you ever think about how different our lives are? I mean, you have this huge career, and I'm just me." She looked down at her hands, feeling vulnerable. "I know I'm not the same as the women you're used to being around, and sometimes I wonder if I'm really the right fit for your life." Liam didn't speak immediately. He sat quietly for a moment, his expression unreadable. Emma's heart raced as she waited for him to respond, her insecurities rising to the surface. "Emma," Liam said softly, finally breaking the silence, "I'm not looking for someone who fits into a mold. I'm not looking for perfection, I'm looking for someone who is real, who is honest, who cares. And you are all of that. You're more than enough, more than I ever expected." He reached across the table, gently taking her hand in his. "I don't care about the difference in our worlds, Emma. What matters is how we make each other feel. What matters is that we care for each other, that we support each other." Emma felt a lump in her throat as his words sank in. She had been so afraid that her past, her struggles, her financial problems, would push him away. But here he was, telling her that none of it mattered. She wanted to believe him, but the fear still clung to her. "But what if I'm not enough?" she whispered. "What if I can't give you what you deserve?" Liam smiled softly, his eyes warm. "You don't need to give me anything, Emma. You already do. Just being with me, sharing these moments, is more than enough. Don't ever doubt that." Emma sat there, stunned by his words, her heart swelling with emotion. Could it really be this simple? Could love truly be enough? She looked up at Liam, and for the first time, she felt the weight of her doubt start to lift. She wasn't just a waitress, and she wasn't just a girl with a broken past. She was someone who deserved love, just like anyone else. And Liam saw that. He saw her for who she truly was. The next few days were filled with a new sense of hope. Emma no longer doubted herself as much. She allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a future with Liam, one where they could build a life together, no matter how different their worlds seemed. She wasn't going to let her fears control her anymore. And Liam, as always, was right by her side, supporting her, encouraging her, and making her feel like she was more than enough. One evening, as they sat on the couch together, Liam turned to her with a serious look in his eyes. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice a little hesitant. "I know we've only been seeing each other for a little while, but I feel like I've known you my whole life. I want to make this work, Emma. I want to build something with you. I want to see where this goes." Emma's heart fluttered in her chest. She had been afraid of moving too fast, of rushing into something that wasn't meant to be. But in that moment, she realized that she wanted the same thing. She wanted to take a chance on this, on him, on them. "I want that too, Liam," she said, her voice steady. "I'm ready to see where this goes, to take that next step with you." Liam smiled, his eyes lighting up with happiness. "Then we're on the same page," he said softly. Emma smiled back, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known before. She wasn't afraid anymore. She had Liam, and he had her. Together, they could face whatever came their way. The future, with all its uncertainties, didn't seem so scary anymore. As she lay in Liam's arms later that night, Emma realized that love wasn't about being perfect. It was about being there for each other, supporting each other, and growing together. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like she had found someone who truly understood her. This was just the beginning, and she was ready to take the next step. As the days passed, Emma found herself settling into a new rhythm. The doubts that had plagued her for so long began to fade, replaced with a quiet confidence. She had come to realize that her life was worth more than just the struggles she faced every day. With Liam by her side, she felt like she could breathe again, like the weight of the world wasn't always pressing down on her. They spent their time together, enjoying each other's company without any rush, without any pressure to define what they were. Emma no longer felt like she was on the outside looking in. She was a part of something real, something beautiful. It was a slow burn, but it was everything she had ever hoped for. But as much as Emma had grown to love Liam, she knew that there were still things she needed to face. There was still a part of her that was scared to fully trust, scared to open up completely. Her past was full of scars, and even though Liam had been nothing but understanding, there were moments when she feared her past would catch up to her, reminding her that she was never truly worthy of this happiness. One evening, after a quiet dinner at her apartment, Liam looked at her with a serious expression. "Emma," he began, his voice gentle but firm, "I think it's time we talk about the future." Emma felt her heart skip a beat. She had been avoiding this conversation, terrified of what it might mean. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Liam smiled, reaching out to take her hand. "I know we've been taking things slow, but I want you to know that I'm serious about you. I'm not going anywhere, Emma. I'm here for the long haul, and I want to build a future with you." His words sent a wave of warmth through her, but at the same time, a cold knot formed in her stomach. This was what she had been waiting for, what she had been hoping for, but now that it was here, it felt like a weight she wasn't sure she was ready to carry. I want that too," she said softly, looking down at their intertwined hands. "But sometimes, I wonder if I'm enough. If I can truly fit into your world. You have everything, Liam. You have this incredible career, your life is set. And I'm just me." Liam squeezed her hand, his expression softening. "You are more than enough, Emma," he said, his voice steady. "You're everything I've been looking for. It's not about what you have or don't have, it's about who you are. And I love who you are. That's all that matters to me." Emma felt a lump form in her throat, but she couldn't bring herself to speak. She wanted to believe him, to trust that he really saw her the way he said he did, but the fear still lingered. Could she really be enough for someone like him? Would their worlds ever truly align? As if sensing her thoughts, Liam leaned forward, his gaze intense. "I know you're scared," he said quietly. "But I promise you, Emma, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not looking for someone perfect. I'm looking for someone real, someone who can be by my side and share this life with me. And that person is you." His words wrapped around her like a warm blanket, and for the first time in a long time, Emma allowed herself to believe it. She didn't need to have everything figured out. She didn't need to be perfect. All she needed was to be herself. And for Liam, that was enough. The next few days were filled with a sense of clarity that Emma hadn't expected. She no longer felt like she had to hide behind her insecurities or her doubts. She could be herself with Liam, and he still wanted to be with her. He still saw her as enough. One evening, as they walked through the city streets, Liam stopped suddenly, pulling her gently to the side. "There's something I've been meaning to ask you," he said, his voice serious but full of warmth. Emma looked at him, her heart racing. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam took a deep breath, looking into her eyes. "Emma, I know we've had our ups and downs, but I want you to know that I see a future with you. A real future. Will you marry me?" The world seemed to stop around her as the question hung in the air. Emma blinked, unable to process what she was hearing. She had always imagined that she wasn't cut out for a fairy tale, that someone like her could never have a happy ending. But in that moment, with Liam standing in front of her, asking her to be a part of his life forever, everything she had ever doubted about herself seemed to melt away. She felt the tears welling up in her eyes, and before she could say anything, Liam gently wiped a tear away from her cheek. "You don't have to say yes right away," he said softly. "Take your time. I just want you to know that I love you, and I want to spend my life with you." Emma took a deep breath, her mind swirling with emotions. For so long, she had been afraid to let herself dream of a future, afraid that she wasn't worthy of love. But now, as she looked at Liam, she knew that everything had changed. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you." Liam smiled, his eyes lighting up with joy, and he pulled her into a tight hug. "I'm so glad," he whispered in her ear. "You make me the happiest man alive." In that moment, Emma knew that she had found her home, not in a place, but in a person who truly loved her for who she was. Together, they were ready to face whatever came next. It had been a few months since Emma had said yes to Liam's proposal, and every day felt like a dream she never wanted to wake up from. The wedding planning was in full swing, though it was still a bit overwhelming for Emma. She had never imagined herself in a grand event like this, and yet here she was, preparing for the day that would change her life forever. Liam was by her side every step of the way, helping her with decisions, comforting her during the stressful moments, and reminding her that no matter how the day turned out, what mattered was that they were together. As the wedding day approached, Emma couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. From the lonely, uncertain girl who had first met Liam, to the woman who was now about to marry him, her heart was full. She thought about how her insecurities had nearly kept her from believing she deserved any of this. But now, in the quiet moments before the wedding, as she sat in front of the mirror with her veil carefully placed, she could hardly believe it was real. The woman looking back at her was different. She was stronger, more confident, and ready for whatever life had in store. The church was filled with the soft hum of guests as Emma walked down the aisle, her father by her side. She could see Liam standing at the altar, his eyes filled with love and warmth, just for her. When their eyes met, everything else faded away. The world outside that church didn't matter. It was just them. As Emma reached the altar, Liam took her hand, his grip firm and steady. "You look absolutely stunning," he whispered, his voice full of awe. She smiled, her heart fluttering in her chest. "Thank you," she replied softly. The ceremony was beautiful, simple, and meaningful. Their vows were heartfelt, their words a reflection of everything they had been through together. Emma promised to stand by Liam, to support him through the challenges and celebrate with him during the victories. Liam promised to love her unconditionally, to be her partner, her equal, and her biggest supporter. When the officiant announced them as husband and wife, Emma's heart skipped a beat. The words felt surreal, but they were real, and she was standing there, beside the man she had once thought she could never have. The reception that followed was filled with laughter, music, and dancing. Emma was overwhelmed with joy, surrounded by friends and family who had come together to celebrate their love. As Liam twirled her around the dance floor, Emma couldn't help but feel like the luckiest woman alive. She had found someone who loved her for exactly who she was, someone who had never made her feel small or unworthy. And as they danced under the soft glow of the chandeliers, Emma realized that the most beautiful thing about their love wasn't the wedding, the ring, or the vows, it was the way they made each other feel. It was the quiet moments of understanding, the shared dreams, and the unspoken promise to never give up on each other. That night, as they walked hand in hand into their new life together, Emma felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had found her home, not in a place, but in a person who loved her deeply, who accepted her flaws, and who made her feel like she was more than enough. The future no longer felt like a daunting unknown. It felt like a beautiful adventure that they would take together, one step at a time. As they looked ahead, Emma knew that no matter what challenges they faced, they would always have each other. The love they shared was the foundation of everything, and it would carry them through whatever came their way. The doubts that had once filled her heart were gone, replaced by a quiet confidence that she had never known before. Liam was her partner, her equal, and with him by her side, she was ready to face the world. Their story had just begun, but Emma knew it was going to be a beautiful one, full of love, laughter, and endless possibilities. As the months passed, Emma and Liam settled into a life they had both dreamed of but never truly believed was possible. The early days of their marriage were filled with quiet moments of connection, late-night talks, shared dreams, and the kind of love that grew stronger every day. Emma had started to let go of the doubts that had once clouded her heart. The insecurities that had once threatened to tear apart her happiness slowly faded into the background. She had learned that love wasn't about perfection, it was about choosing to stand by each other, through thick and thin. And with Liam, she had found the kind of love that was steadfast, unconditional, and patient. Liam, too, had found a sense of peace he hadn't known before. Emma's genuine kindness, her laughter, and her ability to find joy in the simplest things had reminded him of the beauty in life, a beauty he had sometimes overlooked in the pursuit of success. Together, they had built a life filled with both ambition and simplicity, a balance that made their relationship work in ways neither of them had expected. One evening, as they sat on their porch, watching the sunset paint the sky with shades of orange and pink, Liam turned to Emma with a thoughtful look in his eyes. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" he asked, his voice quiet, yet filled with emotion. Emma smiled, her heart full. "All the time," she replied. "I used to think that happiness was something I could never have. But now, with you, I realize I had it all along. It was just waiting for me to see it." Liam reached out and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "You've always had it in you, Emma. You just needed someone who could see it. And I'm so grateful that it's me." Emma's eyes glistened with unshed tears, a wave of emotion washing over her. She had spent so many years doubting her worth, so many years believing that she was unworthy of love. But now, she knew the truth. She was worthy, not because of her job or her past, but because of who she was. She was worthy because she had the courage to love and to let herself be loved. And Liam had shown her that, every day. Their life together wasn't without challenges, of course. There were moments of struggle, times when they both had to dig deep to keep moving forward. But each time, they faced it together. They knew that no matter what life threw their way, they could weather the storm as long as they had each other. One afternoon, as they walked hand in hand through a local park, Liam stopped and turned to Emma, his expression serious yet filled with love. "There's something I've been meaning to ask you," he said, his voice steady. Emma looked at him curiously, her heart skipping a beat. "What is it?" she asked, her voice soft. Liam took a deep breath before speaking again. "I know we've built something beautiful together, and I want to keep building with you. I want to grow old with you, Emma. Will you continue to be my partner, my love, my everything, for the rest of our lives?" Emma felt her heart swell at his words. Tears filled her eyes as she realized that this wasn't just a simple question. It was a promise, a lifelong commitment. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I will." The weight of those words hung in the air between them, more powerful than anything they had ever said before. It wasn't just about a lifetime together, it was about a bond that had been built on trust, on love, and on mutual respect. They were partners in every sense of the word, and nothing could break that bond. As they embraced, Emma felt like she was standing at the beginning of another beautiful chapter in their story, one that would continue to unfold with each passing day. They had already come so far, and yet the future held even more promise than she could have imagined. The love they shared was unshakable, and with each other by their side, they knew they could face whatever came next. The next day, they stood together in the living room of their new home, looking around at the life they had built. It wasn't perfect, there were still bills to pay, dreams to chase, and challenges to overcome. But for the first time, Emma realized that perfection wasn't the goal. The goal was simply to love, to cherish, and to grow together. And with Liam, she knew that they would always have that. "I love you," Emma said softly, looking up at Liam. "I love you too," he replied, his voice full of sincerity. "Forever." As they stood there, hand in hand, looking out at the future that awaited them, Emma felt the last of her doubt slip away. They had built something beautiful, and this was only the beginning. The journey was far from over, but with Liam by her side, she knew it would be filled with love, laughter, and all the things that truly mattered. And as they embraced, Emma finally understood what it meant to be truly loved. It wasn't about being perfect or having everything in order, it was about being seen, being accepted, and finding someone who would stand by you, no matter what. And with Liam, she had found that person. The rest of their lives would be a journey, but it was a journey she was ready to take, as long as they were together.